what we know as planners is that showing up the day of or the day before and actually being able to execute your vision is not a real thing. So the actual planning to be your day of coordinator starts about 4 to 6 weeks prior to that.
Welcome to the Plan Your Central Florida Wedding podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Schmidt, editor of Greater Orlando's top wedding publication, Orange Blossom Bride. I'm sure when you said yes, you had no idea you were jumping on this roller coaster that is wedding planning. The goal of this podcast is to help make the wedding planning process less stressful and a lot more fun. We'll provide you with great tips and ideas along with expert advice from some of the area's top wedding pros. So let's get started planning your Central Florida wedding. There's a lot that goes into planning a wedding, and you may not be familiar with some of the wedding terms that you're going to hear along the way. In this episode, I'll be talking with Beth McIntyre about some of the common wedding terms and what they mean. Beth is the owner of Villa Festa, a wedding venue that is opening at the end of summer 2022, which will specialize in weekend weddings. She's also the owner of Your Favorite Day, which is a wedding planning firm here in Central Florida. So welcome, Beth.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back, actually, I should say.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. Always fun to chat.
Oh, yes. And this is an episode that is going to be very helpful. It's kind of going to be a run through of terms. So we're not going to spend like a huge amount of time on each one, just kind of like a run through of things that they're going to hear along the way, because most couples have never planned a wedding and they may think something means something, but in actuality it doesn't. So a lot of times couples think something, but the wedding professionals think something else, so we need to bridge the gap, and that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it, because we got a little bit of a list here.
Sure.
And what is the first one you want to go with?
So this is a term that we know, however, guest list, I'm just going to touch on that as painful as creating your guest list might be, and there is actually, we already did a podcast episode on that,
yes.
Amanda, so
it won't be as painful.
Yes. So it won't be as painful because you already did that step. However, couples are wondering, do we really have to do that? It is the first step that's going to be most helpful in your wedding planning, because you're going to get asked that all the way through. So it really is important to come up with that guest list, or at least a couple of versions of the guest list. And you're thinking, how am I possibly going to know what my final numbers are? So there is a little tried and true formula that pre-COVID used to work pretty well. These days, you just never know. But, I would say start with this. So you do your in-town guests and assume about 85% of them are coming. Out of town guests, about 55% of them come. So 0.85 times your in-town guests, 0.55 for your out-of-town guests, add them together and see what you get. Now, of course, your guest list. So like for me, I have 2 aunts that they're going to come to everyone's wedding. So like maybe you know that about your family. There are certain people that come to every wedding, even though they live across the country. So take a look at that formula, do your best guess, and come up with some kind of number, because you're going to need it all along the way. So I just wanted to touch on that, because that is going to be a question that you get pretty early on from almost everyone that you're talking to.
Right. And that goes into the reason Beth's saying that to do one of those first, because one of the first things after that you're going to do is going to find a venue.
Exactly.
And you need to make sure you have a venue that fits.
Exactly. You need a venue that's going to accommodate your guests. So the terms that you're going to hear when you're searching for your venue is, when you're looking at that lovely price tag, a lot of times you'll see it phrased as an event fee or rental fee, venue fee. So that's going to be a flat rate cost that you see, probably several $1,000s, that will have some sort of inclusions listed. Some venues include tables and chairs, some include linens, or maybe archways, certain seating. You want to look at the amenities in which that flat fee and event fee covers when you're looking at the venue. So call it a few different things, but that's going to be one thing that you'll see when you're looking for your venue. The other thing that you're going to see when you're looking for your venue, particularly those places that have what we call in-house catering. So when you think of in-house catering, that is like a hotel. A hotel does all of their own catering. Some private venues do all of their own catering. So you want to ask that question. So if you hear them say, we do our catering in-house, or, it's all from in-house, or you'll choose your caterer from a preferred list. Those are things that you might hear. So that's going to be the second cost of your biggest cost of probably your whole wedding. And that is what's going to depend on your guest count. So when you're looking at the catering options, the in-house catering, what you might hear is, this is our food and beverage minimum. Now, if you're like me and my husband, when we were looking for our wedding venue, this was a totally new term to us. So what that means is that is going to be their minimum that you have to spend on catering in order to have that space on that day. Now, likely it's going to be higher on a Saturday, lower on a Friday or a Sunday or a Thursday. But it all depends on where the venue is, and it all depends on what their business looks like typically. So reason you want to watch out for that food and beverage minimum is, let's say you're looking at a venue that has in-house catering. Let's say they show you a menu that they offer for weddings that is $65 per person, and it includes alcohol. And you're like, easy math. I have 100 guests, got 65 per person, $6,500. Okay, mental note. You got to watch out, because their minimum for, let's say, a Saturday night might be $9,000. So now you're looking at, okay, I'm going to spend $90 on each guest. Totally doable, by the way. You can come up with an amazing menu, upgraded alcohol, all that good stuff. But you just want to think, is that what I want to spend? Because you will be required to spend that in addition to your flat rate event fee, venue fee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, keep in mind that those are two separate things.
Those
So
are two
it's
separate
not,
things.
it's not like the event fee is rolled into the beverage minimum. They're two separate things.
Yes.
And yes, it is very easy to upgrade, but like you said, do you want to? And we've talked too on another episode. This is your third time, so we've talked about a lot. But about your budget. And, knowing that ahead of time with your guest count is going to help make these decisions a lot easier, because if you get there and you have the room and you're like, okay, well, we thought it was 65, but it's really 9, but that's fine because we have the budget for it, or reverse. No, we can't do that. So that kind of nicks it right where it needs to be.
Yes, absolutely.
So we covered venue and guest list. Now let's move on to some photography terms that they may hear.
Okay, perfect. So you're going to see, or if you're on Pinterest, you probably know this term already, but let's get into what it really means. So photography, one of the things your photographer is going to probably ask you, your wedding planner is going to ask you is, are you doing a first look? So first look is basically you and your partner going to see each other all dressed up before the ceremony. And the point of the first look is either to get like surprise pictures, to get a really good groom's reaction without anybody around. You have a couple moments to take really beautiful photos together. You can even exchange gifts at that time. So in a lot of ways, it's a nice moment for you. It doesn't save any time though, really, because you have to plan for it in your timeline. So the reason that your photographer and your planner are going to ask if you want a first look is because typically photographers like to get there for the pre-wedding stuff, at least 2 hours. A lot of them like to do, because then not everyone's not rushed. So if you're doing a first look or a first touch, you at least need that amount of time, if not more, depending on where they're going to do that. So that's something that you want to think of right away when you're thinking about your timeline. Now, I said it won't save you time. It will save you a little bit of time after the ceremony. You won't need quite so many couple pictures then, because you had some beforehand. But it is something to keep in mind. Another alternative that you might see, and this one you might not be as familiar with, is called the first touch. So that means you're still getting together somewhere. You're kind of around the corner or back to back, and you're just holding hands, for photo op, or perhaps that's where you exchange notes for each other. Maybe you read your vows privately. There's a lot of sweet moments that can come from that. But again, that is something that you want to know ahead of time and plan for, because you don't want to rush that. And you
Right.
certainly don't want that to be too close to the ceremony time, because your guests will see you, and this is supposed to be a private moment. So
Right.
that's just something to think about, when you're talking to your photographer. You want to definitely plan for that. You want to be ready for that time so that there's enough time so you don't feel rushed and you can enjoy those moments.
Well, and that's, we saw kind of like when we got married, it was like, I didn't even know what a first look was. That wasn't
Yeah,
a
it's
thing.
gained in
Like,
momentum, so it's
right.
definitely not
So,
something that was standard.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and then it became like really popular and it seemed like
Mhm.
everybody was doing first looks, and now we're kind of seeing the pendulum swing a little
Yeah.
to like, we don't know, a lot of couples are still choosing to do a first look, but I'm seeing more and more first touch become, you know,
Hmm.
more popular. So then they still have that special moment, but many of them, it's very important. I know my sister's getting married, and
Hmm.
one of the things for her fiance was that he does not want to see her before the wedding. So
Yeah.
they're going to do a first touch. So it's a good compromise when you get there too. So
Yes.
something to think of.
Yes.
Now,
Side
the
note, I
next,
did have recently, I had a couple that was planning to do a first touch, and she wanted to surprise him with a little joke from his best man. Which
yeah,
means, by the way, as a wedding planner, I had to plan more time because I knew that that was going to be twice as much time.
right.
So at the last minute, we said, "Oh, she actually wants to do a first look," and he said, "No, no," because we're going to surprise him with the best man.
Oh,
But we did convince him, and then they did the joke first look, and then they did the real first touch. So you can imagine, as as a planner and photographer, we were definitely having conversations about that beforehand and how much time that was going to take. So
right, exactly. And that's why you hire those, especially for a planner. They need to know all those details. That's not something you want to be like, oh, we were talking last night and we decided we wanted a first
yeah,
look.
although that was
Like,
kind of what this scenario was, but we did make it work.
but you're a good wedding planner, so you made it
Yes,
work.
yes,
So,
we made it work. We made all the moments happen. And just one more thing about photography beforehand, you're going to hear from your photographer getting those detail shots. What that
mm-hmm,
means typically in this scenario is getting pictures of items that you're going to wear, or your couple, your other partner is going to wear before you have them on a lot of times. So
mm-hmm,
shoes, earrings, sometimes your dress, they'll take it on a little tour around the venue or the hotel where you are. So if you hear from your photographer, we need time to get detail shots
mm-hmm.
beforehand, that's what they mean by that.
And 2 points to that. That
Hmm.
means bring your invitation suite too, if
Yes,
that's
yes,
important
yes,
to you. And if they're going to be taking shots of your dress, have a nice hanger.
yes.
You don't want the
Please,
plastic store
yes,
hangers.
yes. Go on Etsy, get a hanger with your name on it,
Exactly.
or just that says bride, or something that says something nice. Because yeah, I've been in those weddings too where we all have our dry cleaning hangers, and it's not quite as
Mm-hmm.
pretty.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want, you want the whole look to look
Yes,
nice, not just
yes,
the dress.
yes.
So, this next section we're going to move on to has to do with planners, but we're going to kind of do the short version of
Short
this
version.
because
I'll
there's a
try. I will
lot.
try. I'll try.
There's a lot that could go into this for sure.
Yes,
It could be its own episode.
yes, yes. So it's no secret that Amanda and I, because I'm a planner and she knows this world very well, that we're all going to say, like, you need at least a day of coordinator,
Yes.
which is also someone who is a wedding planner. They will offer day of coordination services. So when you're looking for a wedding planner, because I know you're going to get one, I know you're going to get some sort of
Absolutely.
form of a wedding planner, you're going to see different phrases. You're going to see day of coordinator. You might see month of coordinator. You might see a package called partial planning, and then you'll see full service planning.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times the day of coordinator and the month of coordinator is interchangeable, because what we know as planners is that showing up the day of or the day before and actually being able to execute your vision is not a real thing. So
Right.
the actual planning to be your day of coordinator starts about 4 to 6 weeks prior to that. So most day of coordination packages that you see are actually going to be month of coordination. So you may see those interchangeably. Amanda, what you and I were talking about beforehand is that occasionally there are planners or venues that offer a package that is true day of coordination, which would be more of a pure setup of your stuff when you're not there. It does not involve a lot of wedding day conversations. So if you do see a day of coordination package and you want a month of coordinator, meaning someone that's going to get a good handle on everything that you want before the day comes, you're going to want to make sure that it includes getting together and talking several times before the wedding, and usually starts about 4 to 6 weeks prior. So a little clarification on that. And then, of course,
absolutely.
your partial planning packages are going to include the day of, month of, plus attending some vendor meetings. So wedding pros and vendors, meeting with them. And then your full service is going to be, someone that's involved every step of the way, attends all the meetings, perhaps sometimes does your design for you. So just top line of those terms, just to kind of look out for as well when you're choosing who to work with.
Right. And keep in mind, those price points are based on the amount of time that is spent helping with your wedding. So obviously a full service planner is going to be a lot more expensive than a month of or day of. And I also, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's a good clue. If you see a day of coordination package that is significantly less than anyone else you've seen, that could be a clue that it is truly just show up on the day of and put out the boxes that you have out.
Right.
So just, something to be aware of.
Well, and I mean, if that's, there's all different types of budgets that listen to this podcast and Orange Blossom Bride. So if that's literally all you can afford, that's all you can afford. I'm not going to say too bad, figure it out.
Yeah.
But if you are looking to make it easier coming up, definitely look at minimum a month of, because a lot of couples don't know how to make a timeline. They don't want to go through the hassle of contacting all the vendors and coordinating all that. So know that a true day of, does not include those things.
Yeah.
What Beth is saying, it's literally them just setting up your stuff, because venues many times don't do that, which leads us to a venue coordinator, which is different than all the ones you just talked about.
Yes, totally different. So when you're searching for a venue, you may see that they have a venue coordinator included. So really with this one, you have to just ask, right. Hey, can I see a bullet point of what's covered with this? Because it could be, at the end of the day, their main focus is to protect. I say protect, is to look out for the venue,
right?
Not as much your interest and your vision. So not to say that they're not wonderful people and that they're not going to make it the best day possible. So in fact, like I often say this, like we had a venue coordinator for my wedding. I did not know that she was not my day coordinator. I mean, like, because she was so willing to do all the things that
right.
we knew we weren't going to be able to do because we were getting married. So I look back and I'm like, oh, Melanie really went above and beyond, and she was definitely not
now that you know.
Yeah,
right?
She was doing more than what's required of her as a venue coordinator. And they often do, but just be aware, because there are going to be times where they'll draw the line, and you'll see that, oh, they don't put all my favors out at my table. They don't check to make sure that every table is according to my seating chart, or like they're not going to make sure that I have my memory table set up correctly and things like that.
Right.
So,
well, and as they should draw the line, right? I mean, everybody's got their roles. You can't expect them to do more than that's what their job entitles.
To call back to the like the venue and the catering, a lot of times if it has in-house catering, they're also the liaison to the catering, the food and beverage. So you definitely want that to go well, and that's part of their job too. So you don't want them to do the things that they're really not supposed to, because then they're not having times for the things that they're responsible for.
Right. And ask. And I mean, a lot of, you were saying about each one's different, so you have to ask. But keep in mind, that's because we have like over 400 venues in the Central Florida area alone, and many of them are privately owned. So that means they get to choose the way that they want to do it. You may find similarities if you go from like a hotel to a hotel.
Yeah.
Those tend to be more similar, but
Mm-hmm.
private venues, they get to do what they want. That's why
Yep.
they're a private venue.
Exactly.
Right, Beth? You know about that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
moving on to reception details.
hmm
And I am a big fan of sweetheart tables
hmm
because I find that that's a great focal point that if you don't
hmm
have a big budget, you could really go all out on. But it's not the same as a head table. So tell us what the difference is.
Yeah, so most recently, a sweetheart table has definitely been most popular. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where the couple is just sitting, just the two of them, typically at a much smaller table at the front of the room or at a focal point of the room. Head table historically was your entire wedding party, and they're a lot of times they're plus ones, so people that aren't even in the
Mm-hmm.
wedding party. So it can get rather large.
Yeah.
Or you can make a decision to make their plus ones spend for themselves, and then line everybody up in your wedding party. Because those were getting so big because of the plus ones, you also might hear a king's table. So the head table, at least in the 80s, remember, like they all would face out. So it was
Hey,
like
I
one
didn't
big
get
long
married that
table.
long ago,
Oh, did you
Beth. No,
ever?
I'm just joking. But no, I know what you're talking
Yes.
about.
I mean, I just feel like when I think of a head table, I think of like that like wedding singer vision of like they're all there and
One
they're
of the
all
best
facing.
movies ever.
Totally. They're all facing out. So when it was started to be thought of, hey, like these people have dates and they might want to sit together, then this king's table developed where it was just a big rectangular table. It's not facing out. Everyone's there with each other, and then the bride and groom can join them, or sometimes not. Sometimes they have a
Mm-hmm.
sweetheart table, and then they have a king's table with their wedding party and plus ones, and maybe some family too. So.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. I mean, with the head table, if you're plus one, if they're not married or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
they may feel awkward sitting at a random table. So you kind of understand that. But yes, it
Yeah.
could get carried away. And a sweetheart table is always nice because even though, you don't have that much time, it gives you
Mm-hmm.
that dedicated time. You're going to be sitting down and eating and talking to each other.
Yeah, just a couple minutes together.
Yeah, exactly. So next, let's go to florals.
So the what I was going to touch on here, I mean, like we said, you could do a whole podcast with a floral designer, and they could tell you all
Exactly.
the flowers and which ones are more expensive and all that good stuff. But the tip I was going to get was what I was going to give is that pretty early on inquiring to your floral designers, they're going to ask you your quantities. And again, like the guest list, that might freak you out right away because
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I really don't know. But easy guides that you can use early on in the planning process. Obviously, you probably have a good idea of who's in your wedding party. So that in that regard, you can tell them how many bouquets, how many boutonnieres, how many corsages, how many parents, grandparents you might have. So
Mm-hmm.
have that in mind. And then as far as centerpieces for tables, a lot, ask your venue or your rental company what size the tables are, most tables, and how many they seat. So most tables are going to fit 8 to 10 people. So you can do a little bit of quick math. You didn't know we were going to do a math lesson today, but you have those
Easy math,
100,
easy
yeah.
math.
You have those 100 guests, so you're going to have about 8 to 10 tables, and you can plan for that. And then the floral designers in the wedding industry are really great about helping you adjust that when you finalize your guest list. So they know that there's going to be changes and
Right.
adjustments about that 1 to 2 months beforehand. Just it needs to be before they order the stuff. So make sure you
Yes.
check in with them and ask them when they need to know what your final table quantities for centerpieces are.
Well, and that's a good point too about before they order them because we've talked to Andy from the flower studio before, and she's been very adamant that once they're ordered, they're yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was during when we were talking about when COVID happened, and there's a lot of cancellations and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But once they're ordered, they're coming.
Yes.
So you need to find a way to use them.
Yeah, exactly. If you
Otherwise,
if you thought you're gonna have 10 and now you have 8 tables, guess what? Your sweetheart table gets extra flowers now. So,
exactly, which
you
isn't a
know,
bad thing.
no, not at all. Not they'll be used. We'll definitely use
Exactly.
them somewhere. So,
Exactly. Now let's move on to desserts.
yes, again, I wish we could do a whole podcast on desserts, and we
While
need
we
we
eat the
need an
desserts,
expert. Yeah, while we eat the desserts. But I think our dessert friends will agree that Instead of a larger cake these days, a lot of times you may just see a cutting cake. So that will be a smaller, like think top tier of the cake that you will cut for the pictures and the photo op, and also for your, let's say your legacy guests that really want the traditional stuff and they want to see you cut a cake and they want those pictures. You're going to cut that. And then a lot of couples are opting for a dessert table that's a little more free flowing. People can get what they want. You might see cake shooters, dessert shooters on there, like in little shot glasses with all the cake layers. So if you opt for a cutting cake, there's still a lot of options to get your guests fed with yummy desserts. And sometimes it's a little more fun because it's more flexible. Not everybody wants, the kind of cake that you chose and, wants to eat that. So they can kind of have fun looking at all the other desserts that you're offering.
Well, and that goes to knowing your guests too. Like you were saying with the legacy cake eaters, that's actually my dad. And we've had a conversation about that because he's very passionate about food. And I'm from New Orleans, so it's wedding cake flavor. It's like almond cake. And when he goes to a wedding and that almond cake is not there, he feels gypped. So
I know.
It's a good option to have just like a little small cake. Or if you know none of your guests like cake, then go all the dessert route, which is nice because it's fun to go up to a dessert table and be like a kid again and see all these
or
sweets. And you're
table,
like,
forget about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. You're like, oh my gosh, give me the bag. Let me fill it up.
Yes.
So knowing your guest and how many and that kind of stuff, because if nobody's a cake eater, you don't want to get a 5-tier cake that's just going to go to waste.
Right, exactly. So
great tip there. And then the last one we're going to go through is for DJs.
Yes. So DJ stuff is pretty self-explanatory, I feel like, but something that I've been seeing more and more is this private last dance with your DJ. So that typically takes place if you're doing some sort of grand exit, like a sparkler exit. While myself, the wedding planner, the venue, everybody's getting all of your guests outside. There's a chance for you, the two of you, to dance to a song of your liking with just you in the room. And a lot of times, DJs are really cool and even they'll leave the room. So it's really just you in like a crazy, messy, beautiful mess of a room. And then you have another moment together. So I feel like the whole wedding industry has recognized that the couple doesn't get a lot of time together. So we're trying to create these moments where it is just you. So a private last dance while your guests are either exiting for your grand exit, or sometimes they're just like, hey, everybody get out.
Yeah. Well,
and,
hey.
you don't have to have a grand exit or sparkler exit, streamer exit, anything to have your private last dance. You just have to ask for it. And like I said, it's just something that we need to plan for in the timeline.
Well, exactly. And that's something to plan for. And the couples, I was just, as you were saying that, it made me think of, I just finished a real wedding that's going to be featured on the blog. And it was at the Howie Mansion. And we always have the questionnaire of, what was their favorite part? And, of the whole day, that's what she said. She said for both of them, it was their private last dance because, it was so crazy throughout the whole day. And then they get that one moment before you walk into your future. I mean, that's kind of cheesy, but that's true.
Yeah, I know. And like the first dance in front of everybody, it's not the same because you're a little nervous, you're hyped up, you want to play.
Awkward.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. And even if you have a choreographed dance and that kind of stuff, you're still trying to think about the dance moves. It's like we're walking in, we're now Mr. and Mrs. or whatever, Mrs. Miss, however combination you have.
Or whatever.
I know. How are we gonna do this? Oh, you messed up. Oh, great. And so it's an awkward. Let's just say
it is. It's
awkward.
Not without stress for sure. So that time, and it's also like you're picking for that part. Hopefully you're always picking songs and things like that are true to you, but you do want to pick something early on that's a little more like, oh, this is a nice song. But like your private last dance, I mean, you could do something super goofy or just something really sappy, like whatever you want to do. It's just you guys. So
yeah. And and that just goes to how much I love weddings today, that they are just so customized to couples. And I think, Beth, what year did you get married?
2013.
Okay, so I'm 2010. So we were in the age of tradition. like
Yes.
everything you just do
Yes.
because that's how it's done. So
Mm-hmm.
to see that
Mm-hmm.
evolve and to see couples really personalize, really with so many things, I just love it. It's just the
Yeah, I
best.
sound 100 years old, but I will tell you, when I was planning my wedding, Pinterest was new, brand new, and you had to sign up to get a Pinterest account, and they would approve you and be like, you can have a Pinterest account now. Like, it was so early on. And so that really launched, I feel like, everyone seeing what everyone else was
Right.
doing and like the idea sharing and all of that. But I only had a little taste of it when I was planning my wedding. And I remember seeing a first touch through a door, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wait, whoa. And then
You can
just
do
had to put it,
that?
yeah, I just had like to put it in the back of my mind because it wasn't going to work with what we were already planning,
Right.
but I mean, I remember seeing things like that. I mean, like, well, that's crazy. Like, what are
I
they
know. Well,
doing?
and I mean, that's one of the things, like being in the industry now, I'm always on my husband. I'm like, we got to renew our vows. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this because you say Pinterest just came out. The year I got married, Pinterest just started. So like there was nothing there. I had just heard
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And I was copy and pasting Google images for my centerpiece
Oh,
inspiration,
yeah.
which I
Yeah. Yeah.
still have. I should probably share that one day. But
Yes.
yeah,
Let's get out our
it
wedding binders and
I
see
know,
how
let
they
me my
look.
scrapbook.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just so different. So, I mean, and that's one of the many things I love about doing Orange Blossom Bride is that we can provide that inspiration as well,
Yeah.
that couples didn't even know because we're in the world all the time. And what we've seen a million times, they may have seen for the first time, and they're
Yeah.
only going by what their, parents or friends have gotten married and done. So it's a great Pinterest is a great resource, listening to other vendors in the area and trusting your wedding vendors
Yeah.
because they can get as creative as you want. That's
Mm-hmm.
why they are who they are.
Yes. And just to wrap it up, I mean, if you're running into a lot of things that you don't know what they mean, and just ask,
Yes.
because we do get industry termy and we start throwing things around and we all know how to talk to each other. But when we understand, like, a big part of our job is education. So just slow
Right.
down and ask us, wait, whoa, whoa, first touch, what is that? And
Mm-hmm.
we'll be happy to. I mean, everyone would much rather explain it so that the couples fully understand it and know what they want so that they're happy, than to not spend the couple minutes it takes to explain it. So just ask as you're along the way, like, and we should all understand that this is an industry where our couples are new, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a one time thing a lot of times, so they haven't done this before.
Well, and to that, you don't want to be thinking it's something that it's not and
Right.
then not get what you thought it was because that's not
Yeah,
what it is. So
absolutely. So just ask
don't be
questions,
exactly.
along the way.
Well, thank you so much, Beth, for being with us today and give couples some information about the venue because that is coming out in the end, probably August-ish. You were
Yes,
saying
yeah, yeah, we're
end of
thinking
summer
August.
to be safe.
Yes.
And if you go on to our Instagram, I was able to do a tour renovations.
Yes.
It's going to look way different when your wedding comes, but you can get an idea of what the venue looks like. It's at Villa Festa. And give us some more information about how they can see that whole process come along because you've been doing great about sharing
Yes.
it along the way.
Thank you. We're trying to make the renovation and the construction part of the experience of following along with us. So our website is www.villafestaflorida.com. If you go there now, it's just a landing page to sign up for email updates as we develop things along the way. But our website will soon be there, and it'll be very robust, and you'll get all the information that you want there. You can also follow along on Instagram at Villa Festa Florida and Facebook. So we're always doing updates. We're showing you paint swatches. We're showing you our wedding pros and vendors that are coming to visit us, and hopefully taking you on a journey as we finish up the design. But yes, we are actively taking inquiries for August 2022 and beyond. So come check us out. I will take you on a tour now. You need to bring your imagination and your closed-toed shoes, but after that, like, we show you a lot of what it's going to look like. We show you
Mm-hmm.
the renderings. We have architects, we have designers, all this stuff. So we'll show you all their stuff so you'll know what to expect. But yes, if you're interested, there's an inquiry button on Instagram. like in the link in bio. So
very nice. And they are located in DeLand, and they specialize in weekend weddings, which if I had to pick a favorite type of wedding, that is my favorite type.
Yes.
It's an experience in itself.
Yes. Check in on Friday, wedding on Saturday, stay till Monday. You can even stay longer if you'd like. Bring 14 of your closest friends and family and hang out. We won't kick you out right after the wedding's done. So,
and just to note on that for the couples listening, 14 can stay, but how many can you have for the wedding?
So our sweet spots around 80 to 90 guests, but we can accommodate more if we do a tent in our yard. So we have yard, is that like in our on our property? It's almost an acre. So we do have room for a tent that you can use for your eating portion, because we know it's Florida, and I'm not putting you guys out in the middle of a lawn to eat without some sort of cover over you. But the best type of group would probably be like 60 to 80 people would be lovely there. Really nice experience.
Well, and that's still a great wedding size. So if you're like, oh, 14's a little too small, I mean, for the wedding itself, because DeLand has some accommodations that they can stay at if they aren't local, it's just a great option. So go check it out. It is a unique venue, and it's got that really great homey feel, and you can extend your wedding celebration. So who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, and then go on your honeymoon later. So just like celebrate for like a month or 6 months or whatever you want.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Beth, for being with us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Plan Your Central Florida Wedding Podcast. For more Orlando wedding inspiration and tips, head on over to orangeblossom.bride.com. And if you're looking for amazing wedding pros to help bring your wedding day together, make sure to check out our wedding vendor directory. Until next time, happy planning.